Just a little bit of housekeeping from myself, which is the thank yous for this amazing set of forums, or fora, or fori. I don't know, my Latin's a little rusty, but they have been run by the wonderful new company Fight2Flight, run by Peter Gowan, whose brainchild it is to run a series of conversations where we can share tips on how to proceed, and also just share our worries, hopes and dreams, I guess, with the guidance of people who work so excellently in the business. So Fight2Flight, who are resident here in Smock Alley, the wonderful Smock Alley, are the first of the thank yous. And the whole thing is made possible by funding from the Arts Council and the Irish Theatre Institute. And it is also being run, and here we go, as by Rethink Ireland as part of the Accelerate programme. Now today, as the title In the Room, and it is, I feel, one of the most intriguing and worrying parts of being part of the performance industry for the performers, because it is to do with casting and how that happens. And here, and giving so generously of their time, and hopefully we'll be able to get some great tips from them as well about the do's and don'ts of this strange and wonderful process of casting. We have John O'Hare, producer and director, Miss Lynne Parker, director and artistic director of Rough Magic Theatre Company, and Maureen Hughes, casting director. So I did ask the panel just initially to just have a think about, just describing their approach to casting, which also I feel will tell us what they hope to get from the casting process. And I know it's a broad stroke, but we'll take it back in from there and get down to, I guess, nitty-gritties from there. So, John, if you want to kick off with that, if it's possible to even make a broad mission statement on it first.
Thanks, Pauline. It's lovely to be here. Broad brushstrokes. I mean, you did sort of do a provocation before we started. We were just standing over there, and you asked me, let me frame the question right. Did you say, has anybody ever talked themselves out of an audition before they even start? And I was thinking a bit about that while I was sitting here, and it's a difficult question to answer, and I think it's about personal relationships, obviously, and you want to work with someone. If it's a play, you're going to work with someone for a long time. And I don't think consciously I've gone, oh, you're talking yourself out of an audition, but it's a feel thing, isn't it? When you're having that little chat and you're trying to get to know someone, and this is if you don't know the actor. And we'll go back to that question of, why do directors work with people, or seem to work with people that they know, or people repeat the people who they're working with. They're trying to build an ensemble, and it's hard to build an ensemble in this world, but great theatre comes out of time and ensemble, and so you develop relationships over time. So whenever I'm doing a production as a producer, I've got a theatre company in Australia with Lisa Stafford, Moy, who you know very well. He was at the part of the Druid Theatre Company in Galway. We have a company in Australia. We put on our own stuff, so we create our own work. We do have funding at different times. So the producer hat that I wear is, applying for grants, trying to get funding for the company and all that kind of stuff. But we pick the material that we want to do, and so that's why we have a company. We have a passion for this industry and a passion for what we do, and we have a particular aesthetic. So we have a particular way of working. It's Opunksky's way of doing it. So Opunksky's Hamlet, or Opunksky's The Night Alive, or whatever it is. So we cast amongst ourselves, and we cast people we know very well. And we'll cover that territory. Getting back to the question, there's always one or two roles, and they're often the younger roles, where we have an open audition, what we call an open audition, where we want to give people a chance to come and work with us, and we want to meet new people. I'm also a theatre acting school teacher, so I know a lot of young people, obviously. So I form relationships with young actors in that capacity. So it's about relationship. And if you're at an audition, we know you're nervous, and and it's a hideous actually situation, even for the directors sometimes, when you're meeting new people and they're nervous and you want them to do their best, you want them to be great, but their nerves are getting in the way, and they're talking, and they're often talking quickly, and they're trying to impress you, and it's hard, and your heart's breaking in a sense. So there's that dynamic is going on, but once they get up on the floor, you can sort of get over that. I don't think anyone is, in my memory, that I think consciously that they've talked their way out of it, but maybe there's an unconscious relationship, sort of, ickiness about a conversation that maybe, it doesn't quite work for some reason. Yeah. So I hope that answers the question. Yeah.
Sure, yes. I love that you said it was a provocation that I said out before everyone around. Lynne, could you just talk us through your process on this?
Okay, well, I think I would like to say that I hate auditions, and I don't know anyone who does like auditions. Maybe it's the equivalent as an exam or something. You can be good at exams and not particularly know the subject. However, they are a sort of necessary evil. When Rough Magic started, we had a core company, so that we had a group of 4 actors who were in everything. And that went on for quite a long time. But we were always having to you can't just do shows with 4 actors. So we were always having to bring in quite a number of people. And in the early days, you did a bit of auditioning, but there was a kind of big stew of theatre makers in Dublin in the early 80s that you kind of just went and saw each other's shows, and you saw people and you kind of asked them to join in, and it was quite fluid. But then it gets a bit more formal, and what you find is there are people you audition because you're interested specifically in them for parts. There are people there are times when you do open auditions. When you don't know what you're looking for, you kind of do know what you're looking for, but it's more a question of seeing who's out there and throwing the net wide, seeing what new kind of combinations of people can come at you, and that's mostly younger actors. And then there are the sort of senior actors who you hope will accept the part. You don't audition them; they kind of audition you. And then you have meetings where it's very much a sort of like an equal conversation, and you're just hoping that they bite. So there's a very, very different kind of series of interactions there. But like when 3 years ago we were looking to build an ensemble company that would do two productions, 8 actors across 2 productions. So we auditioned heaps of people, and it was difficult because I was directing one of the shows, Ronan Phelan was directing the other, so we had to sort of almost do deals with each other. We were looking for slightly different things, but we were looking principally for an ensemble, and that's a very important thing. So you're looking for a specific on the part to serve the play, but you're looking for an ensemble approach or mindset when you're thinking of building the program, building the company. And I suppose, there's so much you can say about this, but what you're looking for, obviously, is someone who's right for the part, but you're also not looking for someone who's too obvious. So you're kind of looking at something that will slightly stretch, particularly with a classic, stretch the audience's perception of what that could be. So something just slightly left to centre. That's what we do anyway. And then, of course, you just need someone who, if you've got someone who is the kind of tragic heroine, you need someone who will bring on stage the energy and confidence to carry that part, So you're looking for someone who's kind of in charge of themselves. So, that doesn't mean that the actor themselves doesn't have all the vulnerabilities of any human being, but you need someone who's going to be able to hold a show, to be a lead. And then you want someone who's funny. Now that could be very hard. Someone who's naturally funny, and I guess that's the kind of actor I really love working with. I would also favour someone who's got a really intelligent approach to their work and can communicate well, because that's key to the way we do shows anyway. So someone who might be dead on for the part but really isn't that good at getting ideas across, I would favour someone else who might not be just as right, but who's a really good collaborator and communicator. So every project is different. Some plays need such specific casting that you're hoping that the one or two people in the country who can actually nail this will be interested, one or two or three, and then if that's not the case, then you're going to have to rethink how you approach it. So the director is always kind of doing a big balancing act and putting together a very sort of complicated matrix of needs. But while the writer and the script need certain things, it is essential to have people who can work together well and form a very coherent, balanced company. So that you've got people whose egos aren't sort of out the door, and who will relate well, not just to the other actors, but to the whole creative team, to the designers and the producers and everybody who's making, the technicians, so people who really generate a sense of company. And what else can I say about auditions? I do think that drama schools should run master classes on how to get in and out of auditions, like literally how to walk in the room and how to walk out of it again elegantly, because we all know that there have been those hideous moments where you sort of forget that you've left your bag. And I know somebody who went out not feeling great after the audition and kind of stumbled around in a bit of a daze, realised they left something in the room, wandered down corridors trying to find someone to ask, could they go in, and found a door that opened into just behind the desk where the producer and the director and the person doing the next audition were placed. So embarrassment can be pretty severe. So have your exit strategy ready. I think some of this famous Judi Dench always said, just know where you've placed your handbag, so you're not fumbling on the way out. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
Maureen, obviously your title is casting director, so this is entirely,
my world.
Your world. It does exactly what it says on the tin. So can you talk us through?
Well, like Lynne, I hate auditions. I really do. I think, is there any way of ever getting away from it? The idea that someone comes in and has 15 minutes in front of a panel of people and has to try and achieve so much and leave and hope that they've done enough. It's kind of an impossibility. But we haven't come up with a better way of doing it, so we stick to it. I work in film and television and theatre, so what I might be useful to you guys in talking about it is the difference between the two and how you prepare in a different way for the two. I worked with Gary Hines for years in Druid, for maybe about 20 years, and I was interested by her audition process because she never wanted, for instance, the actor to learn the piece, which I always found interesting. I think it's a really good idea. What she did want was the actor to really know the play. And then she just wanted the actor to read a scene in character. And I always thought that was very fresh and I asked her once why, and she said, well, because if they've learned it off, it'll take me 3 weeks to unpick all of that work and take them back to where we need to begin. In theatre, you have 4 to 5 weeks rehearsals, so there's a certain ease with which you can approach the work because there's a whole body of energy to come on board from the day you begin rehearsals, unlike film where you have to arrive on set, pitch perfect and go. And that's the main difference, I suppose, between theatre casting and film and television casting, is that for film and television, you have to know the piece, you have to give your best version of it on the day and hope that's the one that swings the director. Whereas theatre is a much more organic, easy, more creative, because what you want as an actor is to throw yourself open to a director and say, well, look, I've read the play 5-6 times, I have ideas about how I might play this, but just sit back and read it with them. The director, if it's somebody like Gary or Lynne or whoever, Andrew Flynn or whoever I work with, will sit back, and it actually makes it slightly easier, because then you're just listening to the text. You're not watching the big performance, because we don't want to see the big performance in that room, I don't think. You want to see, what you want to see is ideas and a physicality that might work, an emotional register that will be available to you as a director, that you can go, I know that that person can go to that point, or that person started very low, but I'm intrigued as why they decided to be quiet in that scene. Tom Vaughan Lawler, for instance, is a very interesting audition. He approaches everything very quietly. It starts from a really quiet place. But you kind of find yourself kind of moving over the desk, kind of, because you're intrigued by him. And so you find yourself listening harder to him. And as a result, you know you're already in, and he knows you're already in. It's like he's roping you in slightly. And other actors have different ways of doing it. I talked about him because I just remember being blown away by something he did once in an audition, and it was that very quiet. It was like where we were just kind of leaning over the table, and I thought, oh my God, this is very clever, because he knows exactly what he wants to do in this scene, but he's making us kind of go towards him, which is very interesting. And the more we went towards him, the more we knew we were going to cast him, which is very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Was that a film audition, was it, or a theatre?
No, it was a theatre audition. But again, the theatre audition for me is always in a way quite similar to the film audition, except the actor isn't off script. I rarely do movement auditions. I don't like actors standing up trying to walk around an imaginary space for an audition for theatre. Kind of doesn't work for me. I don't understand it anyway. I'm not a director. So for me, it's just about sitting down and reading a scene. Yeah. But reading it really intelligently and bringing something emotionally to the scene, and bringing, as Lynne talked briefly there about humour and comedy, and weirdly there isn't enough of it in the world. We're very dramatic, the Irish. We're straight into the bloody McCree. Whereas to find the actor who's light on his feet or her feet and has a touch of the absurd or the comedy, oh my God, we gravitate towards those in auditions.
Yeah. It strikes me, as we're speaking here today, that we should talk about the elephant in the room. Literally, we are talking about being in the room for casting, and obviously we live in the strangest of times, and that hasn't been possible. Often we're down then to, certainly you would work in a world of a lot of self-tapes anyway, Maureen.
Yeah.
And, it seems to me that they have become horribly important, over the last while, because, it's literally, until recently, you couldn't even invite somebody to come and see work in a theatre because, there just wasn't. We're coming back, which is great. But, on the self-tape thing, and it's the breaking of everybody's heart, really, you are now at the mercy, if you like, of going in blind to them, because you don't get the opportunity to receive direction from a director. So, do you find that, Maureen, a kind of a level playing field then for acting, or do you hate it?
I absolutely hate it.
Right.
I've begun a campaign to bring back the room.
Yeah.
I really miss the room, and I miss it for film and television as much as I miss it for theatre, I'll be honest. There's something about an actor walking into a room. There's a chemistry, there's a fizz that happens that sometimes has nothing to do with the piece of script they're going to read. There's just something about the physical human connection between the director and the actor in the room that has nothing to do with the scene they're about to read. In fact, it becomes the lesser thing, because I've watched actors walk into rooms and watched directors just kind of sit up and kind of go, oh, and then the piece happens, and I miss all that, and you can't get it. And you can't get it for film or television either. And there is a lack of connection, and I'm bored looking at bloody self-tapes. hundreds and hundreds of self-tapes. I'm bored. Flick, 20 seconds, flick, move on. It's so
Interesting,
inhuman.
yeah.
It is 20 seconds.
Yeah.
That is
And
it.
it's
You're
very
making a
interesting
decision
because,
within 20 seconds.
as you know, sometimes you'll be given 8 pages
Yeah.
to learn. By
And it's
tomorrow,
appalling.
get it on tape and off.
Well,
and you just wonder, have I just wasted a day of everyone's life here? Because, I've learned the 8 pages, and after a few, they'll know in the first moment or two whether it's worth it or not. I think it's so unfair.
Yeah, it's
actually,
completely unfair, but nobody's watching 3 minutes of a self-tape. Absolutely nobody. You are making a decision within 20 seconds. So I often say in workshops, actors who are saving their best for the high moment at the end of the scene, we're not there.
at the beginning.
We're 5 actors
That is
gone past.
terrifying, isn't it?
is terrifying.
And
It
so soul-destroying
Yeah.
for all of us.
But what it does is, the minute you know that, actually, you have to kind of relax on self-tape. Again, one of the great self-tapes ever, and it's not a self-tape, it's a filmed audition, but actually I always make people watch it. It's the young actor who played E.T. I don't know if anyone's ever seen it on
that,
YouTube.
yeah.
It is the most stunning piece of work. A young child who comes in and just opens a door to a couple of men who want to steal his monster. And it is heartbreaking, and it's wonderful, and it's without artifice. And actually that's the thing we want to get at, actually, is losing the artifice, the presentational quality of the audition. It's about getting into the text and not presenting it, but just being in it. And that's the same for film and television and theatre, I think.
It's interesting you should bring that up, and I might ask Lynne perhaps to ponder this one. There are loads of stories of, so-and-so went in, dressed as the character, had the accent, even though it mightn't be, got the part. There are famous stories of that. And as a result, we all want to know, how can we stand out, as well as being ourselves, and you hope that there's the acting. Is that ever a thing to do, would you say? Or, it's a hard one. It's a hard question.
No, it's not. No, that's not the thing to do. Maybe another director would say different, but no. In fact, what something you have to bear in mind is the director doesn't always know what they want either. Because and I think that's a good thing. If you start off with an absolute preconceived template for what this production is going to be, I think you're crazy. You have to find out as you go. So you have to have, in broad strokes, obviously, a good take on it. What an audition will tell me is not even what I want or what the actor will do with it. It's how far the actor can move within the half hour or whatever you have, 40 minutes, whatever it is. And you're trying different things. So what I'm looking for is flexibility of thought and ability. And so we go on a little journey where it might bear no resemblance to the final product. But what you're looking for is someone who can do the dance with you and move intellectually and emotionally, I suppose, as well, and has the imagination to be able to do that quickly. And if they can't do it quickly, then that they can do it at all, or that they are going, yeah, I know what you want, but actually I think it would take me a bit of time to get there, is a very legitimate response as well. So being real about what you can actually do, but showing that you can absorb not so much an instruction, but an idea, and work with that idea, and you might get nowhere near what the production will need eventually, but just to show that you're able to run with something. That's what I would look for. And if somebody comes in with a preconceived notion, then I'm sort of done. I don't know where to go with that unless they're prepared to unpick it on the spot. So yeah, I mean that's just my take.
It strikes me that things have improved so greatly for actors, even over the last 5 to 10 years, in terms of in the casting process. We now have things like, you will have age blind casting, gender blind casting, whatever. Do you say, John, as a producer, do you find that you've had to change your conceptions sometimes of as you approach a production and think, hang on a minute, what if, or would you regard those as sort of almost gimmicky stunt casting things? I know that you're going to sound like a very bad person if you go, no, I'm happy to cast a man as a man's part. But do you know what I mean? Like, do you feel that is something that you consider now, that mightn't have been in the more traditional way of casting?
Yeah, well, being a director over time, obviously, things have moved and changed and shifted. In Australia, we've got a very multicultural society, the LGBT, QI, the whole
A. I think there's an A in as well.
An A, but there are more actors. At one time there weren't that many actors, and most of them were either Catholic or white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Now we've got people from all over the world, and with drama schools it's the same thing. So I don't care, what your gender is or what your sexuality is, or where you're from. If you bring those essences into the room, and we make that connection. And again, it's the humour. It's always about what's this person going to bring to the room? That's the question in my head, because we're going to work together for 4 or 5 weeks at least in the rehearsal room. What do you bring? Let's play. Let's get up on the floor and play. And it doesn't matter where they're from or who they are, and you just get that connection and that feeling.
I wonder if there's ever a time, I would throw this out to everyone on the panel, and because it kind of ties in with a few other questions I have. Is there ever a time when somebody's casting something where you can approach the person? Would you welcome it if they said, I know that you want to see me for the young male lead, but what about thinking about me for the young, at the moment, female lead? Is that something that you would then find welcome even as an idea, or would that be a terrible annoyance?
Well, for me, it depends on the actor. There's an actress I work with a lot in Australia, Susan Pryor. I work with her a lot because I know her so well. We've built a relationship over time, and it goes back to that time and ensemble thing. I know that she will go anywhere. She can do anything. That kind of relationship that I have with Susan, whenever I'm casting a play, I often think, can anyone else but Susan do this? That's where I'm at with that personal relationship with Susan. And yes, she has suggested that to me, and we workshop the concept.
I suppose I wonder more for people that you don't know, because look, all of the actors here in the room, you know what I mean? Like that, it's like almost like cold calling. Is at what point is that welcome? At what point can we do it as actors, or at what point does it become just so annoying or unwelcome from, say, a director or a casting director that you think, no, I would have called you if I wanted. Do you know what I mean? We're all trying to be seen.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're not in a show that you can be seen in, or you want to stand out or be seen for something that maybe you weren't called for, say, to even tape for or whatever. I guess asking as an actor, like, how can we get your attention?
Yeah, well,
if you're not on my list,
if you're not coming into the room, you mean?
Yeah,
you're not on the.
Yeah, you're not on the list. I mean, Maureen, you must get this all the time. In the land of self-taping, that.
You do, and kind of my rule of thumb is, I'm only human. What do I know either? I think in a way, casting is kind of a midwifery position. I don't know, so I'm open to it, to be honest. And if actors send in tapes, of course I'm going to look at them, because I'd be terrified that I'd miss something that someone else would find and claim after me.
Yeah.
I'm a great believer in being the one that finds the one. So for that reason, I do kind of, like I had an email from an agent this morning about an actress who really wants to be seen for a role that I had kind of said last week. I felt she was too old for giving the brief, and but she went ahead and she did a tape for it, and I came in. It's a really good tape, so I've sent it off to the team this morning. My instinct is she is still too old, but actually it may trip something in them because it's a really good tape, and she's a really good actress, so it may trip them into something that they may rethink the role, or they may go, okay, well, she's not right for that, but actually that audition is so good, I'm going to change that other role, and she's going to be that. So, yeah, I have to say, it's not that I encourage every single actor in Ireland to try out for every single role, because I would be dead, actually. But I think if you do feel incredibly passionately about something, and let's say you live in a house with 4 other actors and 4 of them have been called by me and you haven't, and you've read the script, and in fact not only that, but you've read with them on their self-tapes, send in a tape. You just never bloody know. I'll watch it. It doesn't, like, it costs me 20 seconds. That's the reality.
Well, we now know that we only have 20 seconds.
So that is, it's 20, you've 20 seconds. So you're in, you're either watching more of it or you've hit the forward button.
I suppose part of why I asked that question as well is that I'm very conscious that there'll be people even here with us today, and certainly people watching online, who don't, for instance, have an agent. And so they're wondering, how can I be seen? And Lynne, you must get, CVs in or requests, like from people who cannot show you work because they haven't been cast in something. And, how do you deal with it? I know that's a horrible question to ask.
I think this is a huge question, actually, because what we're really talking about is actors' empowerment. And so the system, I don't think it's great where, producer hires director, director starts to look for actors, hires designer, and it's very hierarchical, and I think that really needs to be broken down. And I've always been interested as to why actors don't lead productions enough. I mean, occasionally they do. But, an actor can have an idea for a production which is every bit as valid as a director's idea. So why doesn't the actor get themselves a producer and get the funding, hire the director, hire the designers, take more of a leading role in that form. And I've asked lots of friends of mine, and most of my friends are actors, and there just seems to be like a lack of confidence, I think, in the ability to do that successfully. And the fact is that it probably will be very difficult for actors to do that because the funding bodies and all of that, all of the money, seems to lead towards companies and structures, However, something we ran this year was a thing called Rough Ideas, where we encouraged people to come to us with an idea, any idea, as unformed as possible in many ways. And a lot of those people were actors, performers themselves. So they're bringing the idea that they will lead that creative project. And I think that's one way you can start to do it. How you get into an audition is just luck and cheek some of the time. And I mean, what rarely works is the CV that lands, in the brown envelope, and you open it and then you put it on file because you've nothing going at the minute. I would say really important to be in the scene, be around spaces like this, be around, when it's all open again, God help us. The places where the new people and new companies get set up, even to do one show, seen and heard and that kind of thing. And that's very obvious. But you become sort of part of a network where people are talking about you, and people hear that, and people like myself do try and see as much work as possible, and we go to the showcases as much as possible, and we don't catch everything, but the gossip mill starts when somebody's really good. You get to hear about it, so don't feel that it's just about knocking on doors. Be active, I would say, to people, and then sometimes you just get taken with somebody's approach to so you have a conversation in the bar or whatever, and you remember people. So it's a very social thing, which isn't kind of a sort of a rigid bit of career advice. Advice go to the bar. I'm not saying that. I am saying just find ways of making work and being part of the scene, and it'll eventually hit in. And think of your own work. because, you know, it doesn't happen overnight, and it was a long time before Rough Magic was making work of, you know, that people were paying attention to, although we were able to do quite ambitious stuff early on, because nobody was getting paid anything. You know, that can't keep going. But the more you make your own energy and your own work, I think that the better it will be for you.
I think it's probably time to open the discussion up to the floor. If anybody has any questions they'd like to ask our panel, because you know, I think we're at that point now where people now know that they have specific, probably, questions that they want to explore. So if anyone would like to ask anything, please go. Oh, where? Oh, there. Sorry.
I was wondering, are you guys still open to somebody older who hasn't been seen in a long time coming to you for the older part? Like,
of course, we are interested in finding out new people all the time, you know. So we do, as I say, occasionally do the open call auditions. But although I'm saying, you know, the CV is very rarely what it comes from. Of course, you have to send in your CV. But it's more the I suppose just being part of the conversation around theatre making in the city and in the country, because we have to spread out beyond Dublin now.
Anyone else?
If somebody suffers from panic attacks, you don't know when that is going to strike. And
No, that is tricky.
It may strike once you've cast them, they may be fine, and then they start into work either in film or television, and it strikes. And it can be debilitating.
I think we've worked, you know, in as long as I've worked in the business, which is since the mid-80s, I have watched, I mean, one of the big things in the 70s and the 80s was there was a lot of alcoholism in the acting community. There continues to be, but it's not as prevalent as it was in the 80s and 90s, and some of our really big actors suffered from it. It did not ever stop them getting work. There was I remember working with Helen Devlin, who was as mad as a box of frogs, because I remember Sean McGinley turning to me and saying, I don't care how drunk he is, I want to work with him. You know, there was a great generosity, so we did. Mental health issues, really, I do think you're right, Pauline. I think it is regarded very sensitively. You know, whatever we can say about the arts, it is, and entertainment, and it's a hard world for everyone to be in it, particularly at this time. We all know, because every single person in this industry suffers at some point from it. It's Pauline, isn't it, that I'm saying? Yeah. It's endemic in our profession, so we've gently tried to live with it all our lives as professionals within the industry, and to work with it in as much as we can. It's part and parcel of being in this business, I think. It's endemic in this business. So I don't see it as a mark against an actor to have any issues like that, and would never, ever, if I'm interested in an actor, I'm interested in an actor, I'm not interested in their health situation. I want to get them over the line, if they're the right person.
I think, yes, that there is, I mean, from my point of view, what I've seen is that there is no stigma attached to it. So please, you know, it's brilliant to have it out there, and it's an incredibly good point to make. But you know, it's a very
important point, though. Just to, there are two things. One is that yes, we do as an industry, we're very supportive of each other, and especially actors. There's a danger sometimes that I think we can sort of keep enabling the problem by doing that. So I think while we need to keep being supportive, and frankly, I mean, the industry is so precarious and the job is so difficult that it's amazing more people don't suffer with mental health issues. But then we have to be able to hand that. We ourselves are not mental health professionals, although the job actually allows you to enter into that sphere quite remarkably. But we need to, as Peter says, open it up so that we can get that support where it's needed, you know, and admit that that's going on, and not just keep everybody just, you know, going. it shouldn't keep going in some places. It has to be stopped and addressed, and then we can keep going in a healthier way. I think.
Anyone else have a question? Oh, yes. Yeah.
When you're seeing an actor on multiple occasions, does their previous work or their previous audition stay with you on any level at all, or are you completely wiping the slate clean for the subsequent audition?
It has to be with in your head, and you know that I would sort of say that that's a more important relationship with that actor than the audition process, is knowing what they've been capable of before. And also, if they've been cast wrong before, or if they've been in a show which didn't quite work, you know, you have to be able to gauge that as well, so that what they bring into the room, which is essential, is fresh, but you are also aware of their capabilities, which might be much more than what they show in the room.
Anyone else? Oh, up the back there.
Hi. I was just wondering about what you said earlier about when you're going into an audition and you don't want someone to make a lot of. I guess what I was going to ask is about decision making in your character, in what you do. I always thought when you go into an audition, you want to be specific. You know, you want to be as specific as you can be with the time you're given. So you, as an actor, look like you've made decisions, and that will, along with your personality and your subconscious, way of going about it, will kind of stand out in its own way. But I just wanted to ask, when you were saying about just like going in kind of broad strokes, like how broad do you mean?
I think the broad strokes I was referring to are the broad strokes that the director has laid down for the final production. But I think the flexibility is what I was really looking for. But when you speak about being specific, I think the thing that you're specific about is the text. So that what you're reading has to make sense. And that's what you drill into. And that's what you make decisions based on. But you need to be prepared to look at it a different way, because that's what interpretation is. And that's going to take you 4, 5, 6 weeks to hammer out. So being sensible about how you deliver the dialogue as written, and the choices that you make based on a rational approach to that, and getting as close as you can to what you think the writer's suggesting. That's what I would suggest.
Anyone else?
But be bold also, you know what I mean? Be not too tame neither. Sometimes you want to see someone throw it all against the wall, and that's your 3 minutes or your 10 minutes, however long you're going to get. So yeah, I mean, bring you into the room and and give it a good crack. I mean, personally as a director, and it's a cliche to say it, but I'd rather temper you, get you to pull something back in an audition, rather than try and generate you to stoke your fires. So let's show your range. Give it a crack. Yeah, and then we can work with that.
That's dead right. And there's no such thing as being wrong with anything. I mean, it's about making the best leap you can based on what you see in front of you.
Again, of course, that is an in the room opportunity. Can I ask Maureen how, sorry, yes, but just for instance on a taping that you're sending in, as we said earlier on, you often do it with no, you may have seen the rest of the script and you know what's going on, but often you don't have any notes from anyone. So, do you find then that people are, don't give it enough welly, or too much? Is too much on a self-tape? Is it frightening?
It always is, because the camera's so close.
Yes.
What you have to understand is the camera is not Lynne behind a table and Maureen or John behind a table and a human connection on. The camera is just there. It is just shooting the face. So the more you do, the bigger it looks and the more you kind of reel back from it. So you do have to temper a theatre audition on camera and in some strange way just again bring it back to the internal. So you're not getting to show what you can do Theatrically, it's why they don't work for theatre auditions, actually. I don't know how anyone casts for theatre of self-tapes, to be honest, I really don't. But you have to observe that the camera will magnify everything by about 100, so you do have to be careful with them.
How do people find out about what companies are doing?
Yeah, it's a tricky. I mean, the biggest problem I think facing the acting community is how to stay visible. How to stay visible in front of people like us, and how to be in front of us when we get to do the projects we're going to do. Spotlight, for me, being part of Spotlight is a really good, I do a lot of my secret work on Spotlight, so I go in, particularly if I'm looking for Irish actors abroad in London that aren't here, I do keep an eye on it, so I will go in quietly on Spotlight and figure out where everybody is, how many of them are there. Spotlight is a gentle visibility. It's really useful to casting directors. I don't know outside of casting directors how many directors would use it, to be honest, not at all, I'd say. In terms, that is a big question. How do you find out what's happening? How do you find out when Druid are casting or Lynne is casting? How do you get in front of them? I don't know. It's word of mouth, it's Facebook, it's listening to the chatter, it's being at the bar of the opening night in Smock Alley and finding out that Lynne's in and she's going to be doing such and such thing next. And, you know, it has always been thus, as far as I remember. It's always been an accidental passing around of information. It's particularly tricky for you because the acting community here in Dublin is like, once the word goes out, it goes out like wildfire. But if you're not in the groove here and you're in London, that is trickier. For me, it's about dropping a note to people and just saying, just keeping an eye on things and just saying, look, I'm in London. Here's my CV. Keep an eye out for anything that I might be right for, and hope that you catch in at the right time.
Can I ask all of our panel, as you said about the being seen, if somebody has a show reel, do you welcome that should be sent to you, like the CV that will, you know, that will genuinely go on file and go, look, let's go through these people, we're having an open call, let's have them all in, or is it useful to have a reel that even, you know, to send to a theatre person, even if it's, you know, something that you've put together yourself of other kinds of work, not just theatre, but is that welcome and helpful?
I find it helpful, yeah, and I'm trying to think of how it happens. You know, you hear about somebody, you might have seen them in something, you might not have seen them, and sure. Then what do you do? Very good to be able to get a show reel, just to have a glimpse of what they're like and the different things they can do. So if you're making a show reel, make sure there's plenty of variety in it. Sure. I guess if there aren't any other questions, I did want to ask the panel, I did warn them of this before, which I think might help, you know, kind of consolidate what we've been talking about today. I did say if you could at all, and you were going to give a tiny bit of, you know, just the soundbite of advice, the one big do and a one big don't of casting, I think might help us at the moment just to, you know, have a little think about what we've been listening to and have we taken away, you know, properly the advice from today. So, John, I'm sorry, I'm starting with you.
You always give the hard questions first, don't you?
It's your own fault you sat beside me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're assuming that it's on spec, so I'll take it as though I don't know you and, you know, you're trying to get my attention. I'll pick up what Lynne said. Empower yourselves, create your own work, make something happen, make an independent theatre scene out of ensembles of actors, which is where the Druids started, you know, and also, you know, with someone with directorial inclinations, and maybe Rough Magic started in a similar kind of way, working for nothing, working every hour that God sends because you have to do it and you want to do it. And it's just in your soul, and get us to come and see it. I mean, from the theatrical point of view, I mean, most times I see someone on stage and I think, I just have to work with her. I mean, somehow, some way, I don't know who she is, I've never seen her before, but she's on the stage doing it. I mean, there's nothing better than that. And it feels to me that there's not I mean, I'm a ring-in, so I'm from Australia. There's a very, very, very healthy independent theatre scene in Australia, which has been generated by actors, and actors have become directors. My company in Australia is an independent theatre company. We didn't have a brass razoo to stick, rub together when we started back in 1989. And now we are the longest running independent theatre company in Australia. And around us, we galvanise a scene. It started with a venue, and wherever we can put on a show, we'll put on a show. But it's all actor generated. And the independent theatre scene is an alternative scene to the main house subsidised theatres. And we've become independent in a sense that we create our own work, but also that is now a feeder system for technicians and crew, actors into the main stage, which is the City Theatre Company or Belvoir Street, which are the subsidised companies. So I just encourage you, particularly, with the generation that mostly what I'm seeing here, you create your own work, drive the industry, become the new industry here. And that's exactly what happened in Australia, and it continues to happen today.
So that would be the big do.
That's the do.
Is there a big don't?
Well, don't just sit in the wilderness hoping that it's going to happen. Because just think about it. How are you going to? None of you know me. How are you going to get me to know you? So therefore, how am I going to get to know you? I mean, what's your strategy for that? I guess don't stalk me. Maybe don't.
We have lightly covered that,
don't
haven't
stalk
we?
me and let me know you're stalking me. I mean, stalk me, but be subtle about it. I do. It's what Lynne said. You have to get to know each other. I have to get to know you and even know you're an actor. So
sure, good point. Yeah.
Don't stalk me.
Don't stalk.
like a crazy person. Yeah, is the don't.
Yeah. And Lynne, a do and a don't.
Okay, well, the do is actually, sounds so banal, but I am constantly surprised by this. A lot of actors come in and they don't look at you when they're reading dialogue, even if you're reading with them. And apparently, actors are told, don't look at the director. They don't like that. Well, I want to say publicly, that is a complete lie. The director is a human being who wants to be spoken to. And, and I mean, they obviously they look at you when you're chatting, but then they sort of pretend that the focus is somewhere else. And I think that is ludicrous. So that's a do. That's a do.
Good.
Don't. And sometimes you have to come in with a prepared piece. Don't pick something that is, one, really obvious, and that millions of other people have done as well. Pick something that is slightly unusual. The person on the other side of the desk has probably been sitting there all day and wants to be surprised and taken out of this formal thing. So bring in a surprise. Bring yourself. Bring all your force and your decisions. But take me by surprise and entertain me.
Yeah.
Yes,
entertain us.
I was hoping to hear that word. Yes,
because we're the representatives of the audience, that's who you're going to have to entertain eventually. They're the most important people of all.
Mm-hmm. Maureen, a do and a don't.
Okay, so the don't is, the big no-no in a room is watching neediness come through the door. It's when the door opens and the actor walks in and you go, your heart just sinks because they're so needy. They're needy for you to love them. They're needy for you. They don't know where to sit. They can't make a decision to save their life because they want you to be very happy with them. The minute you smell that neediness, you're out. You're kind of going, oh my God, is this ever going to stop? Will it stop? So park your neediness, as Ros Hubbard said, on the coat hook outside the door. Put it up with your coat and walk in the door and sit down. And it brings me to the do, which is to thine own self be true. It's a very short line, but actually it is the most important line for actors. To thine own self be true. It is you. I've called you into that room because I think you might be the one. So already you're halfway there. If you're in the room, it means that I think you deserve to be there. So 50% of the game is already in play. The other 50% is yours. If you walk in needily, it's gone. All my good work is undone. If you don't, and if you come in and say, okay, well, I read the script, I've read it several times, very happy to read, sit down, do your reading, get up and leave, you'll be the one I'll be running down the corridor after saying, can you come back next week? Because producers and directors want to feel assured. They want to feel, whew, that's good, you know, or that there's a confidence there. It doesn't have to be an arrogance, which is a completely different thing, but a real confidence in the work that the actors put into the reading of that piece, and the fact that they've brought something to the table. That's what we're looking for. So neediness outside the door and inside the door, unto thine own self be true, and that's the best advice I can give all of you, to be honest.
It's fantastic. And to be honest with you, I know that Peter thought we might be talking till 12:30. I really feel that just now the sort of that will wrap us up beautifully on what I think has been an incredibly positive experience, and I must thank the panel for that. And indeed, it's to do with all of these forums, to be able to sit and to talk and to share and to come away thinking, yes, you know, there is hope, there is positivity. What a way to end such a strange year for us all. And of course, so I can just thank with all my heart Peter Gowan of Fight2Flight, who, you know, put this all together as an idea. And it has been a kind of a lifesaver for many of us to be able to participate, you know, in these discussions. And I hope that you will also be with me as I thank with all my heart the generosity and the positivity that we have gotten today from our magnificent panel, John O'Hare, Lynne Parker and Maureen Hughes. Thank you all so much.